Okay. What the hell? What is happening? I mean, I knew my YouTube set would be a mess after taking a break for this long, but Jesus Christ. This is just a disaster. And then, there's you. Hello, Mr. Skeleton. How did you get here? How is your day going? Hey, your skull actually looks kind of badass. Hold on, let me take a look on it. Yeah. Stupid job on fucking. Oh shit. I need to set my flashlight down. Whoa. Okay. Look at this. What the hell? Like, not gonna lie, this looks really badass. Think I might keep it around. But, you need to get out of my chair, sir. Come on, you've been here long enough. Out. Out. Oh, God. Okay.
Hello. Welcome back.
Well, guys, hi. So, you're probably wondering why... this video is titled my 2018 Games of the Year. I mean, it's already pretty late in 2019. So, you know what? We're going to do something different this time. Everybody, get ready for my sequel to my 2016 Games of the Year video. No, I don't mean my 2017 Games of the Year video. I mean 2016 Games of the Year 2! Thank you. Okay, that's enough. Alright, so in this video I'm going to talk about the video games that I've played since I made my 2017 Games of the Year video that came out in the past few years. If the games are older, I'm not going to talk about them here, just recent modern games. None of this is really a Game of the Year video necessarily, it's just me talking about video games. And ever since I made my 2017 Games of the Year video, I've been playing games a lot less often. And I've been trying to figure it out if it's a problem with me or a problem with games. Like, are games getting worse, or are my tastes in games changing? And I think it may be a bit of both. I've been quite busy over the past few years with the full-time job that I had, so I wasn't able to play games as much, and I feel like less games overall caught my attention. Alright, so let's talk about 3 games that came out in 2016 that I have played. Yes, why am I pointing? Alright, the first one is Virginia. Virginia was awful, and I hated it. Okay, to be fair to the game, I really like its cinematic presentation, but it's very, very lacking in the gameplay department. This is a low-budget indie game, and the cinematic cuts in the game are impressive, but they would be better suited in a movie than a game, because this game has what feels like no gameplay. It's a walking simulator of the poorest quality, meaning your interactions really just don't feel meaningful at all. Anyways, I didn't finish it, I just wanted to bitch about that game. Alright, next game from 2016 is Titanfall 2. Now, I haven't finished Titanfall 2 at the time of recording this video. Basically, I wanted to play a PC shooter where I use a mouse and keyboard to play it all the way through. I had heard that Titanfall 2's campaign was pretty good. I haven't played the multiplayer in it, I'm just not a multiplayer shooter kind of guy. And so far, I think it's very average and decent. Like, it's fun, and it's nice to play something to get into shooters, playing them with a mouse. But it's not anything too special, I don't think. Okay, and the last game from 2016 that I played is Oxenfree. Now, I really liked Oxenfree. It's not perfect, but it's very good. Oxenfree is a 2D horror dialogue choices game, I guess would be the easiest way to say what it is. This game's dialogue is really well written and acted, and you constantly get to choose what your playable character says to the other characters.
And we, the Kamina High junior class, have come to commit improper acts.
Improper acts. All right.
Yeah,
Improper acts? What does that even mean? Soaping windows?
Yeah, I don't think that'll get us tossed in the stockade.
No. But maybe the fact that I brought a whole crap ton of drugs will.
Oh, well, yeah, that'll do it then.
Of course you did.
The gameplay is kind of lacking as there's really not that much interaction to do, but since the game is both very short and because I was very engaged in the story the whole time, it didn't really matter to me. So yeah, gameplay is a little bit shallow, but I found it to be very enjoyable anyways, just because of the whole sort of teen horror premise, and they do things really interesting with the horror aspect of the game. Alright guys, so thank you for watching my 2016 Games of the Year 2, and get ready for my 2017 Games of the Year 2! I know. It's pretty groundbreaking. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so there's two games from 2017 that I want to talk about. The first one is Fortnite Battle Royale. And what the fuck? Like, I don't understand why this game is so popular. Like, I think it's an okay game. I don't think it's a bad game. It's just not my thing. I literally played it one time, and that was it. I'm like, okay, now I know what Fortnite is, and now I'm not going to play it again because it didn't really interest me. Anyways, since I mentioned Fortnite in this video, now I can put Fortnite in the thumbnail, or the title, or the tags, or the description, or something, you know? Gotta get those Fortnite views. God, it's really cold down here. Gotta like bundle up more. It's not usually this cold in my basement this time of year.
I am the Senate.
Alright, and the other game is Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Now, I'll be honest, I have not beaten this game, but I very much was enjoying it, while at the same time absolutely despising it. It really is a love-hate relationship with this game because it's so stupidly difficult that it becomes incredibly fun to make progress in it. Basically, if you don't know what this game is, you control the end of a sledgehammer that a man whose bottom half is in a pot is using to climb up a seemingly endless pile of randomness. And you use your mouse to control the edge of his sledgehammer thing, and it is so fucking hard to control. It's hilarious, and at almost any point in the game, you can lose all of your progress and go all the way back to the start.
Fuck!
And it's insanely frustrating, but insanely satisfying to make progress. I would very much like to return to this game and beat it. But I gotta fix my computer still. It's back there somewhere. Still gotta figure that out. And once I do, I want to live stream that game because everyone's already live streamed it like back in 2017. But it's just so much fun. I think that'll be a lot of fun to do. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching my 2017 Games of the Year video 2. That is getting really old. Okay, let's talk about some games in 2018 that I played. This is not a sequel because I haven't made my 2018 Games of the Year video yet. So, I guess this is it. Whoa, my phone's like reflecting light from the flashlight. Okay, so I have more 2018 games to talk about than any other year on my little list, I guess. And for 2018, I did actually sort of put the games in order from my least favorite to my most favorite. So these are just all the 2018 games that I've played. Alright, first is Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, it's my least favorite game that I played in 2018. I know everyone loves this game. I'm sorry I didn't love it. I don't know what it is, but I just don't get it. Like, it has a very, very nice, detailed world, but the gameplay is just boring as fuck. and the combat just feels kind of And maybe it's my fault because every time that I played the game, it had been like a few weeks since I last played it. But, I mean, I feel like games should be a little more engaging and, you know, make you want to play them more. I felt like it was really, really slow at the start, and it didn't really pick up that much once I got into it. There are many gameplay systems with a lot of depth to them, like a lot, like hunting and, oh my god, there's everything. There's beard trimming. There's so much work put into that game, which is what makes me feel kind of bad for not liking it, but I didn't enjoy any of it. So, okay, this honestly probably looks pretty dumb. So let's make it look a little bit dumber, alright? Thank you. But yeah, it's a game, I've heard it has a great story from the cutscenes and stuff that I watched. It seemed like the story was fine, but it's just, it's not a fun game. Alright, moving on to Detroit Become Human, which I would say is an entertaining game, but also a game that's not very good. Basically, this game is very, very story heavy, and the only gameplay, pretty much, is making choices as you play as different characters throughout the game. There's a few other things you do, like, you know, you walk around, do a few little interactions and quick time event type things. But where the game gives you like the most freedom would have to be its choices. And I think there were a few interesting characters, but anywho, I think that Detroit Become Human had a few interesting characters, but most of the choices had just poor, unsatisfying resolutions. I would say this game is weak on gameplay, and the story is very cheesy and not subtle at all about its messages. That being said, I did enjoy going through it and seeing what happened, but I didn't think it was very good. Jeez, what the fuck? What? I swear to God, something just touched me. Well, let's continue. Alright, the next game is A Way Out. I played this game with my friend Andy over some live streams earlier this year, and we had a lot of fun. Partially because I was just playing the game with a friend, but partially because the game was kinda good. I would say that overall, the game was pretty fun and interesting, but it had a really slow, boring, tedious middle to it. Basically, I would describe this game as being discount co-op Uncharted. It's really cool because you play as these two prisoners trying to break out of prison, and it's split screen, which is really nice because there's not many games that you can just like do couch multiplayer with anymore, and that was really fun. But like I said, it feels like discount Uncharted that's two players, meaning it's trying to be like Uncharted with many of the gameplay aspects and the way that they tell the story in the cutscenes and whatnot, but it's just nowhere near as good as Naughty Dog's games, so yeah. But at the end of the game, there is a very interesting story and gameplay twist, and I think it really made for a great ending to the game. It was super enjoyable to play. It was a hell of a lot of fun.
This is insane. If the whole world tell me your game is shit, I'll tell them, no, it's not. That's how much I believe in it. Okay. Alright? I'm telling you, like, if you play the game from the beginning to the end, and you see what it is, it's impossible you don't like it. Okay. Impossible.
So, yes, the next game is God of War. I really liked God of War, but I think that God of War is really overrated. It's definitely good, but it's not that good. You know, it's not as good as most of the critics have said. I think that the combat and the world in God of War are absolutely amazing. That combat system actually has quite a bit of depth with, like, all the combos and different things in it. And it kept me hooked throughout the game, even as I started to get bored with the story elements. Also, the way that they depicted the Norse mythology in the game was just super awesome. Loved it. Okay, here's my problems with God of War. I think the pacing in the game is awful. I think the game is way too long, everything moves along super slowly, and the story itself is just kind of okay. It's not bad. I do like the relationship between Kratos and his son, and it was well developed throughout the game, but not in a way that felt exceptional or anything like The Last of Us, for example. It felt more like its story was trying to be a little bit like The Last of Us, but the writing wasn't quite there. And really, the pacing is just what kills it for me. Just because a game is a $60 AAA game, it doesn't have to be like 15 hours long or 12 hours long or whatever. Games can be 8 hours long, and that's fine, you know? It's about quality over quantity, I think. And nowadays, way too many gamers demand that their $60 games have a ton of content, which is pretty outrageous because $60 is not that high of a price for these games in the first place. Like, the price of major AAA release games has not gone up for a while, but inflation has. And so have the budgets for these games. And gamers are just not willing to pay more than $60, which is part of the reason why we have things like microtransactions. Anyways, it just irritates me that gamers demand loads of content for a game to be worth $60. Because to me, I would much rather play a shorter game that's really, really good all the way through instead of a long game that has pacing that feels artificial, where the game suddenly goes off on tangents to other realms just because they need some random quest item that's written into the story for no reason. And it's just this artificial lengthening of games irritates me, being someone who doesn't have as much time to play games as he used to. I really, really like games such as Inside, because that game is so short and it's very compact. Like, no moment in that game is wasted. It all feels meaningful, and I really want more games to be like that. Nevertheless, with God of War, it was refreshing to have a solid single-player story game. So hey, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good as everyone thinks it is, I don't think. Alright, and my favorite game of 2018, I guess what would be my game of the year, although I really didn't play that many games from 2018. Get off of me. That game is, you guessed it, this is disgusting. I don't know if you saw it because it's dark, but I was trying to do the, wait, it's like that, right? Yeah, the Spider-Man thing. Spider-Man! Okay, I love 2018 PS4 Spider-Man, whatever you want to call the game. Because it puts gameplay first. And holy shit, is the gameplay in this game fun as hell. Sometimes I still go back to this game after having platinumed it, just to swing around to New York City and waste time, because it's just so addicting and so much fun. This game really revived fun in video games for me. At the time that I played this game, and even now, really, I feel like many video games have lost their concept of fun. There are so many video games now that are focused so much on telling a story that they sort of forget how to just be a fun game. And that's what Spider-Man does. Like I said, the swinging traversal just feels amazing. Insomniac really fine-tuned it to be easily controllable, yet something that also takes a little while to master. Also, although the focus in this game wasn't really on its story, it did have a mostly good story. It was a very interesting and accurate interpretation of the Spider-Man Peter Parker character and of the world, or, you know, the city that he lives in. Now, I don't think that Spider-Man is flawless, because some of the open world things weren't very creative and felt like a little bit tedious, but I could put up with them because, you know, traveling around the city to get to these things or doing all the combat scenarios was so much fun. Also, in the story, there are some character sections that play like walking simulators, and they're sort of a nice break from the fast-paced gameplay, but at the same time, they're just not as good and kind of boring. Also, Spider-Man is kind of long, just like God of War, but, unlike God of War, I played as much as I could of it because I wanted to, not because I had to. Spider-Man was just so enjoyable to play that I really didn't mind how long it was because I just wanted more of that gameplay. whereas God of War's pacing didn't really make me feel that way. But, yeah, that's Spider-Man. It's one of the only games I've platinumed recently. I've really toned it down on the trophy hunting and all that. And I am very glad that this game sold exceptionally well, because we need more games like it. We need more games that just know how to be fun. So, yep. That's 2018. Let's talk about 2019 very briefly. But yeah, I've only played 2 games that have come out this year because, you know, like I said, being busy and not being into that many games. But the good news is that I really, really love both of these games. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Resident Evil 2, which is a remake of Resident Evil 2, which came out, I think, in 1998? Which is the same year that I came out. Of my mother's womb, that is. Not coming out like gay. I'm straight. So I did not play the original Resident Evil 2. It came out the year that I was born. I wasn't really playing video games then. But I did play Resident Evil 7, which I quite enjoyed, even though I had some issues with it. And looking back on the game, the more and more that I've thought about it since I played it, I really I want to play that game a second time, because there were certain things in it that I really, really liked. So if I get the time, I would like to revisit Resident Evil 7. But what's great about Resident Evil 2 is it really focuses on what worked well in Resident Evil 7, and focuses much less on the things that didn't work as well in that game, such as boss fights. The boss fights in Resident Evil 2 are way less worse than in Resident Evil 7, but I do think they sort of feel out of place, and I really don't think a game like this needs boss fights whatsoever. But hey, they're not unbearable or as frequent as in Resident Evil 7, so I like that a lot. Resident Evil 2 has great exploration, item management, puzzle solving, and an overwhelming feeling of dread at times. In these games, whenever some large person is just following you throughout, some house or police station, and you can just hear their footsteps, it's just the worst in the best kind of way. It's so awful and nerve-wracking, and I love it. The combat is really slow, but it's more about conserving your ammo than it is about the actual game mechanics. So I found the actual game and the combat to not be shooting and aiming your weapon quite as much as it was conserving ammo. But to conserve ammo, you need to go for headshots on zombies, because that's the only way to kill them. So if you shoot them somewhere else, or if you miss, you're kind of just wasting your ammo. So skill does factor into it some, but the zombies move pretty slow, and your aiming is pretty slow. So it's not really focused on high action stuff, which is good for a survival horror game, I think. I think the combat actually has a lot more depth and player thought being put into it than in many games that come out nowadays, simply because of, item management and ammo conservation and whatnot. Okay, the other game is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. As of recording this video, I am so close to beating Sekiro, as you saw. God damn it, this one fucking spiderweb. As you saw in my last video where I was trying to beat the final boss. I'm still stuck on the final boss in Sekiro, which I guess I should explain what it is for people who don't know. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is the most recent game by From Software, who made Dark Souls and Bloodborne, both of those games being some of my favorite games of all time. And Sekiro is really a fantastic evolution of the From Software formula. I've played some of Dark Souls 3, and I thought that it was good, but it was more of the same, which was a little bit boring. And I really like that Sekiro is quite different from the previous From Software games, while also retaining the same principles of exploration and difficult combat. When you start the game, in many ways, it feels more casual. There's a lot more tutorials and things just telling you how to play the game and how the game works, and also you can resurrect from the dead after you die. So at first I thought it was going to be a much easier sort of, casual gamer version of a Dark Souls type game, but the game really lulls you into a false sense of security because it is significantly more difficult than any of From Software's previous games. Yeah, there's a creative story and enemy design, and that's cool. Personally, I think the combat system is probably better than Bloodborne's, but I don't really like its world as much as Bloodborne's, which is a very taste-specific thing. But yeah, I think Bloodborne is just a little bit better, and possibly still my favorite game of all time. I don't really know. I don't really keep track of that anymore. Hello there! This is Zach in the present day while I'm editing the video.
General Kenobi.
And since it's been a while since I recorded this video, I wanted to add a few 2019 games that I've played since then. First up is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. So I played some of this game, mostly multiplayer. I wasn't interested enough in the campaign to finish it, but it seemed alright. I thought that the multiplayer was fun as hell for the most part, but I got busy, stopped playing, and I haven't returned to it since. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm not much of a multiplayer shooter kind of guy anymore. But I was feeling a bit of nostalgia for the old days of Call of Duty, and since this game was made sort of similar to those games, and also designed to play a little bit more strategically, I thought I would check it out. And I had a fun time with it from what I played of it, although I'm not into multiplayer shooters very much anymore, and I've heard that microtransactions were added into the game since I stopped playing, so that's a bummer. Next game is Death Stranding. So I actually recorded a spoiler cast, which is a podcast where you talk about the game and spoilers for that game. I recorded that with my friends Brandon and Ian. Make sure to check it out. It's on Brandon's channel. I will have a link in the description. And yeah, I have a few bad stuttering moments in it, so it's worth it. You should watch it. And the same player-built structures, I can't talk. But to sum up my opinions on Death Stranding, I enjoyed most of my time in the game, yet I don't think the game works cohesively. I loved the slow-paced hiking simulator delivery mechanics for the first half of the game, but then it goes on for way too long, having the same overly long pacing issues as God of War. The combat is always awful and unenjoyable. It's either pointless, boring, or irritating. I have no idea why it's even in the game. The story has a lot of great ideas and some truly emotional moments, and also some weird, quirky Hideo Kojima-like moments in it. But there's also a lot of sections that could have been cut out to make a better game. Ultimately, Death Stranding would be better cut down as a movie or TV show, not as a video game. Alright, and the last game to talk about is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think everyone and their mom was expecting this game to be bad. EA doesn't have a very good track record with Star Wars games, but somehow, mostly credit to Respawn, Jedi Fallen Order ended up not just being good, but great. The idea of a Souls-like Star Wars game always seemed like some sort of a perfect fantasy that would never happen for me, since Souls-like games are niche and Star Wars has mass appeal. But it did happen. Respawn got around the target audience issue by including 3 easy modes in the game for casual gamers. But Fallen Order isn't a Dark Souls ripoff. It mixes up the formula by adding in force powers and a more narratively driven story. If anything, it's more like Sekiro, but much slower and easier. It's a very good gateway Souls-like game that I would recommend to anyone who has had some interest in playing games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, but is unsure of the difficulty. Jesus Christ, I sound like a games journalist with all this talk of, it's just like Dark Souls. Fallen Order is also a fantastic exploration of the Star Wars galaxy. There's some references to the movies, the Clone Wars, and Rebels, but for the most part, Fallen Order tells its own unique story without relying on pre-existing canon. Each of the main characters are lovable in their own way, and the game tells a compelling story about coming to terms with the darkness of your past. Of course, it's also just fun to kill aliens and stormtroopers with your lightsaber. The combat is fine-tuned, exciting, and challenging most of the time. There's a huge emphasis on exploration, which I really appreciated, although the overwhelming amount of cosmetic rewards for doing so are quite underwhelming. There's a fair share of epic and a few not so epic boss fights you'll encounter, which was cool. One of my only major problems with this game is how unreliable the parkour system is. It's like Uncharted, except you'll inexplicably fall to your death all the time. Alright, so I suppose I should rank the 2019 games I played, because, you know, that's fun and all. So here you go. From worst to best: Death Stranding, Modern Warfare, Resident Evil 2, Fallen Order, and Sekiro would, I guess, be my game of the year for last year, but I literally only played 5 games that came out in the year, so I don't know if I'm really in a place to judge that. Okay, back to the past. So yeah, guys, that's my video. I finally talked about video games again, which I will continue to do, you know, once in a while. And by once in a while, I mean probably half or slightly less than half my videos will be about video games or something. Also, guys, one last thing before I end the video. This skull right here that... I don't know how that skeleton got here. It's quite weird. And it also just so happens to be shaped like Madman's Knowledge from Bloodborne, which is, you know, where I get my YouTube channel's name. Hypothetically speaking, this skull could have been designed by someone on Etsy and custom made for me. Maybe by an Etsy user named Dark Crop. And if an artist on Etsy did happen to make this for me, that would be awesome, and I would be very thankful to them. And I would say that you should go check out their page and order skulls from this dude if you need some skulls. But that didn't happen. This skull really did just randomly appear here. I was just saying, hypothetically, if that was the case, then that's what you should do. But obviously, this skull is real, and it just showed up here. It's crazy. Alright, guys, thanks for watching the video. Wait. Hold on. Yeah, okay. I could have turned that on the whole time, but Spoopy Halloween, everybody! Spoopy Halloween! I hope I upload this before Halloween, or else it'll be dumber.
Mm-hmm.